the other big thing that I think concept that's really important to understand in terms of manifestation is that manifestation can be often thought of as being a very selfish pursuit. Like it's something that I want. I want to manifest something. I want to get that thing. I want to get that thing. And then I'm going to think about it. I'm going to visualize it. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to journal about it. I'm going to say positive about it. And it's going to show up and everything's going to be better. Well, the fact is that manifestation, the way manifestation actually works is that you don't get what you want when you manifest. The truth of it is you actually don't get, if you're manifesting sustainably, let's say, if you're manifesting holistically, you don't get what you want. You actually get opportunities to become the kind of person who can have what you want. And that's actually the truth that happens with manifestation. You don't just get what you want, you become the kind of person who can have and hold what you want.
Welcome back to the Energy Fix podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And today is going to be a really special conversation. This conversation is all about the things that you love and the things that you simultaneously probably get so frustrated about, and that is manifestation talk. Today, we're talking all about manifestation, not just though the think positive and wait kind of version. We're going to talk about the practical pieces and how to really bring manifestation in a real life way. We're going to be talking about somatics, which is the body, the nervous system, and the subtle ways that your physiology either supports the life that you're trying to build or keeps you back, keeps pulling you back into old patterns, even when your mindset is right. And I use air quotes here, right? Right. So many people have these visions and these goals and these big desires around health and wealth and love and purpose, but their system is still really compacting and clenching and bracing for this impact that their old mindset thinks that they're going to hit. And so today we're going to be really talking about how to create that safety so that you can move forward in a completely different way. My guest today is Brian Trzaskos. He is a physical therapist, somatic science expert, co-creator of trauma-sensitive coaching method called sensation-based motivation coaching, and he is the co-author of Manifestation for Dummies, which keep your eyes out because that book is going to be coming out July 7th of 2026. Brian has spent decades bridging body-based healing with belief change and pain science and nervous system work. And he teaches this all from a very practical, grounded way, which is why I am so excited for him to be here. I think this is going to be a completely different conversation than what so many of you have heard. Now, before we really dive in, I want to just throw out a quick reminder that my latest collection, Gaia Bloom, is live over at beucrystals.com. You can go check out all of the latest pieces that I've created to help support you to bloom and grow and transform. Man, this feels really timely for this show. Yeah, so definitely make sure you head over there because there may be some pieces there to help support you based off of what you hear today. And make sure that you check out tanzyrogers.com for all the latest events and offerings going on. We're in prime season right now, so there's so much happening, events and classes and new sessions and updates. Make sure you jump on over there and check it out. All right, Brian, let's dive into this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Tansy, thank you so much for having me. What an introduction! I've been listening to the Energy Fix podcast now for several weeks since we got introduced and connected. And I have to say, you are so mindful and with your introductions, and really, you could tell how much time you take to really kind of get to learn who's going to be as your guest on the show and who you're going to be chatting with. I appreciate that so much. That's not something that's lost on me because I recognize the time, effort, and intention that takes. And so I'm really super honored to be here with you and really, really grateful.
Thank you so much. That is a huge compliment because I say this all the time on the show. I love doing this show so much. It is one of my favorite things. And so being able to connect with incredible guests and make acquaintances and do these beautiful conversations it's a blessing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it shows. It
Yeah.
absolutely shows. And it's
Yeah.
exciting to be here.
All right. Well, Brian, we're going to dive right in. I want to start with a real question, something that I feel is going to resonate with a lot of people. Why do you think that so many people do the mindset work? Again, I use air quotes here, the mindset work, the visualization, the journaling, the affirmations, and still feel like they're hitting this invisible wall.
Yeah, especially around manifestation, right? So,
Hmm.
we've been conditioned as humans very early in our lives to overemphasize the activity that happens between our ears, right? I mean, we've been taught to intellectualize, to rationalize. We've kind of overesteemed the value of our big rational brains as humans. And this happens really, really early on, even when kids are coming into like grade, like kindergarten sort of thing. And we've been taught actually to override or de-emphasize the information that happens in our bodies. And it really comes from this body mind kind of disconnect that happens. I mean, think about even in grade school when kids are, in kindergarten or first grade and they wiggle and they move, right? Kids are like 6 years old still, and they wiggle and they move to what? To self regulate themselves. And what are they told? They're told to sit still. Um, what do you got? Ants in your pants. They're shamed for moving. They're put in the corner, dunce cap, whatever it is. They're told to go outside, leave the room. They're, kicked out of the club for doing things that self-regulate their bodies. And the reason I bring that up is because this is what actually leads to this profound disconnection or de-emphasis or repression of body stuff and over emphasis on intellectualization because we're taught to sit still, read, learn, add, subtract, all those kinds of things. So, of course, it would end up being with manifestation practices that we're going to lean heavy into all the stuff that happens between our ears, visualization, affirmations, right, journaling. Those are all very heavily brain dominant activities. And so we're going to lean heavily into those things. But the problem is that those are what we call conscious mind activities, right? They're cortex, they're cortical activities from brain function. And your conscious mind is only about 5% of your total mind power is conscious. About 95% of your mind power is subconscious. And so when you realize that, and just from a processing thing for a second, so your conscious mind, the intellectual part of your brain, your cortex, can process, get this, can process about 40 bits of information every second. So if you look around you right now, there's all kinds of information around you. There's colors, there's sounds, there's lights, there's all these things. So your cognitive brain can process about 40 things per second. You think that sounds like a lot, right? Until you realize that your subconscious mind processes 20 million bits of information every second. So if your subconscious is processing 20 million bits of information every second and your conscious brain is processing 40 bits, 40 period bits every second, what do you think's running the show? What is really like controlling like how we perceive things? It's really our subconscious dominantly. And our subconscious is body oriented. And there's parts of our brain that are subconscious centers, but our subconscious primarily exerts its influence through the physiology that's occurring in our soma, in our bodies. And so when we're affirming, when we're doing, and I'm not saying affirmations are bad, they're actually great for a couple of reasons that most people actually don't realize. But affirmations, visualizations, and journaling are actually heavily influenced by what's going on in the soma. And so we think that we're really conscious beings, like we're highly conscious or evolved beings around using our conscious brain. But really what's happening is that 20 million bits of information in our subconscious is telling our conscious mind what to pay attention to. And if our subconscious doesn't want our conscious mind to pay attention to something, it won't give it that information. It'll send it off on a little wild goose chase somewhere. And then we actually ultimately don't create what we want to create.
Mm. Oh, all right. I have so much to say. So, Brian, first off, this is fascinating that the percentages are so largely different. And so I want to just call out here to all of my neurodivergent folks. Did you hear that? The fidgeting, the moving, the stimming
Yeah.
and getting the body to exercise that energy out of it. You're literally moving the energy through your body and releasing what needs to be your loud conscious thoughts are energy. They are being released. And so simply by doing that, Brian, I'm curious, does that allow you to tap back into your subconscious a little bit better if you're getting all of that other stuff out so you can really be connected into the body?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's another reason why I love being here because I'm an absolute energy nerd, and so I
Yes.
just I love all things energy. I'm
Yes.
just a nerd about it. So you can kind of think when you think about energy, and you think about even energy flowing into your home, for instance. Now, if you have too much energy flowing into the house, you're going to blow up circuits. And if you don't have enough energy moving into the house, and you have brown downs, right? And then of course that can damage things with like semiconductors in them, like your TVs and your computers, can be damaged by not having enough energy moving into the system also. So it's the same thing with the human body. We have to have just the right amount of energy coming through that can be regulated in a really important way. Now, everybody has a little bit different capacities for that also. You can actually up-regulate your capacity to have more energy flowing through your system. We all kind of have like a threshold, but that threshold can be changed, like changing a thermostat. The thing is that the fidgeting, the moving, those are self-regulation techniques when there's too much energy in the system. And so it's almost like there's a surge coming in. And if we just try to sit still and contain it, we're going to actually fry some circuits using the analogy that we're using. So when we move and kind of, do that self-regulation, we bring the energy back into a flow or an amount that is just right for whatever our nervous system needs to be able to function with. So again, it helps the system kind of regulate. Same thing when we're really feeling shutting down, then to do some things to upregulate to bring ourselves into more of a even capacity flow will help us to be able to have optimal nervous system functioning on all levels. Now, if we can't do that, if you can't regulate your nervous system, you really cannot consciously create what it is that you want or consciously manifest. So when we talk about manifestation, we can actually interchange the words conscious creation and manifestation. I think you can kind of interchange those because when we think about manifestation, most of the time that's something that people want to consciously change in their life, right? They have a conscious, they want to create something consciously different, and they're saying, I want to manifest that. Right. The truth is, we're manifesting all the time, whether we consciously realize it or not. So, whatever you have in your life right now, you have manifested. But the question is, are you doing it consciously or unconsciously? But manifestation, oftentimes, just in the colloquialism of how we use it in language, what goes along with that is I consciously want something different. So I think to answer your question, in order to really tap into the subconscious effectively, you have got to have a regulated nervous system. You can't do it if you're dysregulated. Just doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, that makes complete sense. And so, as you talked about most of the stuff that we have around us that we've manifested the world around us has come from a conscious standpoint. Just think what could actually happen if we tapped into that other 95% of the subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're always manifesting all of the time. And if we're not paying attention to what we're manifesting, we're actually manifesting the same old things again and again and again. And those things are actually subconscious patterns that are showing up again in our outside world. So we're always manifesting subconsciously. We're always manifesting subconsciously. Now we can consciously choose to change our subconscious patterns and then get something else on auto repeat. So when I say we're always manifesting subconsciously, it's on repeat. Our subconscious is just always on patterns of repeat. It'll just creating the same thing again and again and again and again and again, and it'll also always protect those patterns. And here's the crazy thing, Tansy. The subconscious is more interested in keeping the same thing in your long term, in your short term, staying the same than any long term improvement or gain. Like the subconscious can't tell time, right? Your conscious mind tells time. Your subconscious can't tell time. So the subconscious always thinks like now is the now, and it needs to gain or get something now to be safe and secure. It doesn't care about the future. Our conscious mind wants to change something in the future oftentimes, and our subconscious is like, no, what's good now? And that's the fight that people get into because consciously what they want in the future may seem better, like better health or a better financial situation or better relationships or something like that, but they really can't get themselves going in that direction. They're like, what, why can't I do it? Like, why can't I take the steps to improve my health? Why can't I take the steps to improve my financial situation? It's because their subconscious mind is gaining something in the present moment, and so it's just fine right where it is.
Mm. Wow. Well, before we really get into this method, Brian, and talk about the act or the way that you work with people to move through this, I want your story. How did you go from physical therapy into somatics and belief work? And what did you see in patients that made you realize the body is really running the show here?
Yeah, I'll give you the short story because the long story is pretty long. But the short story is, yeah. So I was trained as a physical therapist, and one of my first jobs out of college was at a world-renowned neurological rehabilitation center, and I was working primarily with people who had traumatic brain injuries. And back in the early 90s. Tells you how long I've been doing this. So the interesting thing is we're a world renowned rehab center, and the doctors were just like the best of the best doctors, and they were, of course, would offer a prognosis for the patients because that's what you do in medicine. You're like, okay, so this is what we're looking at. This is what the scans say. This is what the blood says. All that kind of stuff, and this is what we think is going to happen. And what I realized is that we're pretty bad actually at prognosticating recovery even in these really traumatic injuries. And people got better who weren't supposed to get better. And other people who were supposed to get better didn't get better. And I was really, as a young therapist, I was like, what is up with that? I just graduated from school and I was told that if you look at this scan, like this is the predicted recovery pattern, this is what you're going to say. But I wasn't seeing what I had learned, and the prognostications weren't matching what I was seeing. And I got like, what is going on here with this? And so what I actually made a study of was studying people who healed when they weren't supposed to heal. And what was it that they were doing different than the people who weren't healing? And I really wanted to understand that. And that kind of launched me off into a whole world of body mind medicine, if you will. Wanted to understand. What I realized pretty quickly is that the body is not solely responsible for recovering itself. And really recognizing that we live on three planes of existence simultaneously as humans, right? We live on a body plane. Like right now, all of our listeners can say, "Hey, do you have a body?" And if you have a body, like, how do you know? And we get all kinds of answers. I ask this question a lot when I teach, and it's like, well, I can feel it. I can, smell it. I can taste it, whatever. I've got a body. And I'm like, well, what about a mind? Who here has a mind? And then people are like, oh, yeah, maybe I left it home this morning, but they have a relationship with their mind too, right? And then I say, who here is or has a relationship with spirit? And almost everybody raises their hands. And I say, well, explain it to me. Like, how do you, I'm just curious. What are you saying? People say it was something I believe or something I feel. There's no wrong answer. What I'm trying to elucidate is that we're all living on three planes of existence simultaneously: body, mind, and spirit. And if we're only focusing on the body portion of that, we're leaving off 2/3 of your experience. So of course, your body is going to have something to do with something intangible about it, the mind and or the spirit. So after working at this hospital for almost a decade, I moved back to where I live now in the Adirondacks, and opened up an integrative wellness center with a couple of friends that worked in the area as well. And one of those people that I opened it with happens to be my wife and partner now, Ani, because she actually was doing a lot of the same work I was doing. She was as an occupational therapist by training. So but we were both doing a lot of body work, energy work, massage therapy. We both had a lot of that Eastern kind of training. And then in 2012, together we went through a Kundalini experience that lasted 6 months, and it was super intense, Tansy. It was super intense. So where energy just kind of flushing through, the flush, flushing through our systems for about 6 months, and when energy to that amount of energy flushed, and I didn't know what was happening at the time. I didn't know that this was a Kundalini experience. All I know is that there was a surge of energy coming through my system that was flushing out trauma, flushing out old traumas. And it was pretty interesting because we're going a 3-day cycle. Um, I would have this energy surge that would flush up an old trauma that I'd have to deal with. And then the next day, I kind of had like this integration day where I would kind of be like, what just happened and how does it mean and all those kinds of things, or take whatever action I had to take. And then the third day, I felt like I was enlightened. Like, like literally, um, I'm pausing because there's no words for it. There's really no words for it. That it was just one with everything. That the walls between separation came down, and the patterns of I mean, everything was just patterns, to be honest with you. Everything was just patterns. I was an energy pattern living in a huge energy field of patterns. And so Ani and I were actually going through this simultaneously, but one day apart, so that when I would go through my trauma flushing day, she could be there to support me, and when she was going through her trauma flushing day, I would be there to support her. And over a course of 6 months, it was really, really intense energetically. But after going through that for 6 months and having the cycling of the veil dropping of everything around, and understanding that everything is essentially patterns, and everything is energy. Everything is energetic patterns, and our body is a massive reservoir of information, of patterns, that is archived, I would say, in our bodies in a lot of ways. It's our history, right? Our DNA holds history, and our body's full of DNA that holds all this history, and the way that it lives, and the way that it works and breathes. And even during that period of time, during this Kundalini experience, like as I was working with my patients at the time too, I could see their patterns. I could literally see energetic patterns in their bodies, and I could touch their bodies, or ask them certain questions in certain ways to work to the root of the problem that they had going on. Now, it's not everybody's ready for that, so I had to be very, very careful with who I was asking what, um, because what I was experiencing was everything that came to the surface really spontaneously. I had to be able to manage and deal with. So there was a lot of periods of time of dysregulation, trying to get regulated, dysregulating, trying to get regulated, trying to understand and sort out what was going on with things. But that really made me believe and understand or know something, actually, that's a truism for me now, is that the beliefs that we have are literally woven into the fabric of our physiology. They're literally woven into our physiology, and they express themselves as somatic patterns. And so after having that experience, we started to train people, started to train other healthcare professionals. We have a couple learning institutes now where we train rehab professionals and somatic coaching practices and techniques, all the things that kind of we developed as the course of our own process of healing and going through that experience. And that's kind of how these processes kind of came to place. And that's how I moved from being a body oriented person to more of an integrative, holistically oriented person.
Mm. Brian, I have to share with you my situation very similar. So I
Wow.
worked in physical therapy full time too
Did
for
you
quite
really?
some time. I did. Yeah, yeah, for many years. And I remember there was a young gal that I worked with. I worked with her for many years, probably like 10 years or so. And she had a lot of trauma in her background, um, just a lot of really deep trauma
Mm.
that she was working through. So when she came to us, she ended up coming to us for some different regular things. She was an athlete, so she had a couple different injuries, but eventually she started to develop, or it started to become activated, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which for those who
Yeah.
aren't familiar, that is a connective tissue
Yeah.
disorder. And so for her, all of her, I should say all of it, the main areas that were her most afflicted was her shoulders. And her shoulders literally locked up and would start to round in. And, I would do stretching work on her, and I would do manual work on her. And the only person, now granted, at that point, I was doing some energy healing work too. Nobody really knew it, but I was.
Mhm.
And so, and so at that point, like the only person she would really trust to put her hands on her because of her trauma that she had was me.
Yeah.
And so I would come in and I would just sit and I would start doing my work, and the energy healing was already just flowing through me naturally,
Yeah.
right? And so that was coming through. But as I really stepped into it, I was like, no wonder her shoulders are her most afflicted area because all of that energy, her chakras, everything was trying to just curl up into itself and close her heart, her throat, her empowerment down. That trauma was literally woven in her soft tissue. And
Yeah.
so I love that you're sharing this because I too saw that. And it's so interesting when you are trained in this body work and then you can start to step back and see the bigger picture, how many lives you can really impact for people who are like, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not healing. Why? Why are things not getting better? Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
love that story. I'm
interesting.
so thanks for sharing that with me,
Yeah,
Tansy. I didn't
yeah,
realize you're in that PT
yeah,
world too. Yeah, so it's like,
yeah.
yeah, and then you're doing closet, like, you start off with
It
closet
was,
energy work, kind of like I did too. You're like, I'm
yeah,
gonna do some stuff over here, but I'm not really gonna say what I'm doing until you realize that, wait, I'm gonna claim it
yeah,
because people what the funny story I had is, one of the hospitals I was working at is that patients would come into the clinic to see me, and we go in like the back treatment room, and I would do energy work with them back there, and different kind of breath practices and all the kind of stuff, and then they just come like skipping out of the room, and they'd be like, thanks so much, I feel so much better. And the other therapists are like, what are you doing with people back back there? And I was like, you know
yeah,
what? Maybe there's something to this. Maybe it's time to come out of the closet and actually start doing this work out in front of people. Um, because the results that we were getting, and also like my caseload was starting to grow so much because they're like, Brian, they want to come see you because I don't know what you're doing with them, but they're lining up to see you. I was like, wow, maybe there's something to this. And step out of the closet after a while. I'm sure you probably had the same
yeah,
experience.
yeah. I love that. Yeah. Well, Brian, where you were and where you have now grown, where you're at now in this season of your life, is there a word or a phrase that you feel that you're now stepping into through this whole growth of expansion that you
Yeah,
have made?
Yeah, absolutely. For the past few years, maybe even several years, I've really been honing in on a phrase that's become more and more and more important to me. It's actually a Taoist phrase. It's called when through practice of Taoism, which is similar to Buddhism in a lot of ways. There's some subtle differences there that are important, maybe less than subtle, but there's some differences. That when someone in the kind of the Taoist canon achieves enlightenment, or they say, kind of swallows the golden pill, there's a bunch of interesting phrases around it, is that you have an experience of what's called cheerful indifference. Cheerful indifference. And there's a wonderful little stanza from Stephen Mitchell's version of the Tao Te Ching, where he says that when you return to source, you become tolerant, disinterested, amused, as kind hearted as a grandmother, and as dignified as a king. And so when I first read that phrase, I was like, that's it. Like that's what I want to have my life feel like. And so, so cheerful indifference, you can also think about it like lighthearted detachment, or lighthearted kind of, you're disinterested with the thing that other people are disinterested with, because it's not at the heart of what's true. It's not at the heart of what's real. What's real. There's another kind of idea of becoming what's called a real person. A real person is someone who's returned to their core, who is in touch with their essence, right? Who's connected with the part of themselves that is never sick and does not die. The eternal part of themselves. And so to live in the world but not be of the world, sort of thing. That idea of cheerful indifference is a characteristic marker of someone who lives in that way, or that field, where there's just a constant sense of cheerfulness. And indifference is not apathy, by the way. It's not that you don't care about the world, but you also realize that your locus of control is limited on the world, right? And primarily, you have a lot of responsibility for your own beingness and how you perceive and see the world. And then just to allow that to trickle out as it will, and allow the people who want to be in receipt of that to be in receipt of that. But it's not our job to try to change the way that other people live their lives, or the way that they think, but it's rather to live in confluence with just the way that things are, the higher sense of way that things are, and to be an example in that way. But so this idea
Mm,
of cheerful indifference has really resonated with me for some time, and it's something I spent a lot of time thinking about and being with.
mm. That's beautiful, and such an important concept when it comes to overall self-evolution, human evolution, to really just detach from all of those things that don't serve. But also, too, Brian, isn't that really at the crux of this manifestation conversation too? But I think so many people get really hung up and get really discouraged when they try to surrender. They try to have the cheerful indifference and just detach in a healthy way, but yet their fears, their traumas, their triggering, everything just keeps pulling them right back in to staying so connected into that. So I love that you have been expanding that and really stepping into that concept in general.
Yeah, well, that's just so true because we are a bundle of patterns, right? We're a bundle of patterns, and we learn these patterns very early on in our lives before we're even conscious, right? The first 7 years of our life, we're 100% subconscious beings because of our brain waves, right? Our brain waves are dominantly operating at theta brainwave states before the age of 7, and theta brainwave states are the same brainwave states that hypnotists use when they hypnotize their subjects. So what happens when, like, if you've ever seen a hypnotist work, or you've been hypnotized or something, the hypnotist puts somebody into a trance, right? And when they're in a trance, their brain waves move from beta brain waves, which are kind of like the active busyness brain waves, which are typically between like 14 and 20 hertz. Different people have different numbers for them depending on the research, but that's generally where they go. And then below that is alpha waves. And then you have theta waves, which are somewhere between like 4 and 7.5 hertz or 4 and 8 hertz, again, depending on who you're reading. But when you go into a trance and you go down into that theta brain waves, you can't resist actually what's being given to you. So the hypnotist can plant a suggestion in a person's subconscious mind when they're in theta brain waves. When we're under the 7 years old, we're being subconsciously hypnotized all of the time. And what else is happening at under 7 years old is your body is developing very quickly, right? Your body's changing very quickly before the age of 7. So it's not only that you're being hypnotized with everything around you as being the reality of what you're living in, but those messages are being baked into a body that's growing very quickly, growing and developing very quickly. And that's just kind of a short story to kind of understand how these beliefs get baked in to our physiology. But our physiology runs on patterns, right? It just runs on patterns and sequences and those kinds of things. Very complex sequences, very synchronized sequences, very just like miraculous sequences, but they're still pattern sequences that are happening in our physiology all of the time. And so they're kind of just running on subconscious that way underneath the surface of things. Um, and if we want to be able to, again, change something, we have to be able to understand how to work with that. How we have to understand how to work with the body itself and the subconscious patterns in the body in order to create the change that we want to create.
Which is so, just to be clear for the listener, when you say somatics in the context of manifestation, that's what you're talking about right here.
Yeah, so somatic means body centered, right? It means body. So if you're soma means body in ancient Greek. So it's kind of like soma, body, that's what it is. Now somatics is kind of taking on kind of a life of its own, actually, in our common vernacular, where there's an idea that there's some type of holistic nature associated with it. That somatics is kind of brought on a more body mind kind of uh, association with the common way that we kind of think and talk about things. Yeah. So what I'm really honing in as idea of somatics is the information that is patterned into the physiology is accessible to us. And ultimately, if we want to create change in our life, we have to be able to unlock that information and then put new information into your somatic system that will go on repeat again to create the thing it is that you want to create.
Yeah. And what you had said earlier, going back to what you said earlier about the nervous system, you said that that is one of the first places. It's kind of like that foundational level of making sure that your nervous system is regulated
Yeah.
when it comes to manifestation. I'm curious, what does it look like when someone wants expansion, but their system is really stuck in this protection place? What do you do?
Yeah, so we do a whole set of practices we call core centering practices. And they're all based in a lot of ancient practices. There are things like a self-massage practice, where we lean pretty heavily into acupressure points. Like, how do we work with the acupressure meridian systems in certain ways to open up certain parts of the body, right? How do we help the body find safety? How do we help it find safety first so that it can regulate? We're doing things like mindful movement practices, right? And the way that, because the way that you move, I wrote a whole book on this too. That different principles in these ancient practices, especially the traditional Chinese medicine practices, will change and shift your nervous system in predictable ways. So when you look at like mindful movement practices that are slow and fluid and rounded, there's a reason why practitioners move like that, because those movements actually have a direct effect on the autonomic nervous system in a predictable way. So they help regulate the nervous system. And then, of course, you have breath work practices, right? And of course, then meditation practices also. Those are what we call kind of the four elements of practice. So when someone's having trouble regulating their system, we're going to tap into that set of four practices. But I will say this: most people tend to jump to the meditation practice first because there's so much research around it, right? And meditation is amazing, it's awesome. And then also people tend to jump to the breathwork practice because breathwork is becoming very, very popular. Another amazing, amazing practice. What we've seen though is certainly with meditation, um, a lot of people with dysregulated nervous systems or nervous systems that trend toward dysregulation have a very, very difficult time with meditation, and they get very frustrated and then very self incriminating around it, and they stop. And so we're like, it's actually better to start on the other side of the spectrum. Instead of trying to start harnessing a nervous system that's just like running wild, go to your body. Start on the body end of things. And this works same for the breath work stuff. Same thing for a lot of people who do breath work. What we found out, breath work's amazing. And there are some breath work practices that for someone who trends toward dysregulation can be very dysregulating. And I've had those experiences of being in classes like that, and I've worked with people who had those experiences. So again, we're like, let's go back to the body. Let's go back to where the nervous system actually, I mean, it lives in all those places, but in a very physical way, it lives in the body. You can touch it. Everyone can touch their body with their hands, and they're literally touching their nervous system when they touch their arm or their neck or their head or whatever it is. And all of that feedback gets moved then up the sensory pathways up into the parts of the brain that can actually do something important with it to create regulation practices, right? This is why kids crave a hug when they're really dysregulated, right? Kids aren't going to be like, I feel like I should meditate or I'm going to do some breath work. They're like, they just want a hug because the hug, right, sends information through the soma, through the exteroceptive and interoceptive systems into the nervous system, into the brain that says you're safe. And I think that's a really underutilized thing that people don't do enough of, is actually resource the body first when they're hoping to find some regulation.
I couldn't agree with you more on them on the meditation and the breath work piece. I've seen that so many I get a lot in my practice, I get a lot of individuals with nervous system dysregulation. Um, and so I have seen that over and over and over where there's like, I literally don't feel that I can sit and
Yeah,
meditate. It doesn't work for me. Or I've had some clients tell me that when they've tried breath work, they start to hyperventilate.
yeah.
That was an issue for me too for the longest time. And so I agree with you, really just getting back into the body. Now, Brian, I'm curious though, from a somatics perspective, a body-based perspective, where do you see people really self-sabotaging themselves? But maybe they don't even realize that they're self-sabotaging their somatic body-based healing.
Yeah, so I think there's actually two things to think about with this. I think in one way, it's not so much a self-sabotage, it's just a lack of what we call interoceptive literacy. So, I was just actually on a class call with some of our certification students yesterday, and we send them off into the world to do like practice case studies and that kind of stuff, right? And so they're reporting back in the case studies and saying, "Oh my God, like I'm working," and more than one student said this. Like the person I'm working with, they have such a hard time describing what's happening in their body. Like, why is that? We're like, well, again, goes back to what the very first question that we talked about today is we overemphasize the intellectual ness of being a human, and we de-emphasize or devalue what's going on in our bodies. And by the way, we're repressing stuff down into the bodies almost all the time. So most people don't even want to go down there because what's down there for a lot of people does not create comfort for them when they pay attention to what's going on in their bodies. But at the same time, what you're not paying attention to is potentially creating more of a problem for folks also. And that's where dis-ease patterns come from. So the thing is that on the first level, it's a lot of people just don't sense into their bodies well. And they don't have a great amount of what we call interoceptive literacy. They just cannot describe what's happening in their system. It's like learning a foreign language in a lot of ways, Tansy. If you want to be able to get information, you have to understand the language. And the language of the body is of sensations. And because here's the other thing about energy that's really cool. All sensations they're flags for energy shifting in the body. That's what a sensation is, right? When a sensation is either more electrical activity around a sensor in the body, or it's a change in blood flow to the area, or it's a change in neurohormone profiles to an area that activates certain sensors or receptors. Those are all energy shifts essentially in the body. So when we talk about sensory systems, actually what we're talking about is energy changes. But energy, when we talk about energy, it's a little too amorphous for people to understand. But sensations are very, well, tangible. Not to be, no pun intended, but they're tangible. You feel them in a lot of ways. So people can learn to work with their sensory system. And when you're working with your sensory system, you're actually working with your energy system. So that's part one. Around self-sabotage, this is the interesting thing. Remember, if your subconscious is kind of running the show and your subconscious is usually pretty happy with what's going on right now because you're not dead. That's kind of how their subconscious works. Your subconscious is interested in you not dying. And if you're not dead right now, your subconscious says you're doing a good job, keep doing what you're doing. Even if it's killing you in the process, but you're not dead now. But consciously, you're like, I want something different, right? So we consciously decide we want something different. And maybe we realize at a certain point in time that maybe that something different is maybe we want a little bit more money to come into our house, just as a really practical example. And so we decide we're going to go ask our boss for a raise. Okay, we're going to ask our boss for a raise. And we're like, today's the day. I'm going to ask him for a raise. My son's going off to college. We need to bring in more money. I'm doing a really good job. You are doing a good job. You definitely deserve it, right? And all that stuff's true. And then on the way to your boss's office, you just get to the door and then something comes up in your body and you find yourself like taking a right-hand turn and not going into the office, right? Or if you do make it into the office and the boss says, hey, what can I do for you? And you're like, I would really love to, I think you're doing a great job, boss. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And you walk out without actually asking for the raise. Well, why didn't you? Because something happened in your body. Right? So something came up in your body and you might not recognize what it is, but there's some signal in there telling you don't do that. Do not ask for the raise. And so that's more of that self-sabotaging thing. But what's really happening is your subconscious is flooding your system with sensations that your conscious mind deems as threatening and tells you not to carry through with the activity that you just said you were going to do.
Yeah, yeah, wow. And so, okay, so let's expand on that a little bit. Unresolved stress and unresolved trauma. I'm curious. I'm curious because those two are some of the biggest things when it comes to dysregulation of the nervous system. I'm curious what kind of things show up in the body before they actually show up as behavior for those people who are connected into their body. And for those who aren't connected into their body, can you give any ideas or tips for them to be able to notice when this is a pattern that is becoming an issue for them?
Yeah, it's almost always some type of chronic tension.
Mhm.
Like if I was just going to say one thing to look for, that's going to be the most important thing. It's some type of chronic tension somewhere. Kind of like how you're describing with the client you were working with her shoulders, right? It was a lot of chronic tension. The body was rounding in on itself. So you're seeing contraction in the muscles because the muscles in our body contract and relax, right? And they have to contract and relax for us to move. Even to get up and walk, you have to have muscles contracting and some relaxing, contracting and relaxing, contracting and relaxing. Now, what the problem is when the muscles that contract stay contracted. and they don't relax, they start to develop then chronic tension in the area. So if there's areas of the body that seem to always be tight, you cannot relax them very easily or at all. Maybe you go to even a massage therapist and you have like work done on the area and it feels better for a day, but then the next day it's back again and it's tight again. These areas of chronic tension are the light bulbs, right? Those are the red flags, because every disease process, every single disease process, or most common disease processes in the Western world are always associated with some type of chronic tension in the system, right? Acid reflux, high blood pressure. And high blood pressure, for God's sakes, is chronic tension through the vascular system, right? Acid reflux is chronic tension through the gut system. IBS, Crohn's, right? Chronic tension stops blood flowing going into areas. So you have blood loss, which creates more inflammation in the system. Chronic tension is associated with inflammation. So every really kind of like modern ailment that we have as humans are always associated with chronic tension. And that's what's going to tell you where kind of the locus of the core patterns are in your body. And this is why also, I think you've noted this too, when people go to have like connective tissue release done, Rolfing release done, that kind of stuff. I've done this work for a lot of time with a lot of people and for myself too, is that when you have connective tissue kind of worked through and released, very, very frequently energy is released into the system, and that energy is then interpreted as being emotions. And I can't tell you how many times that people have had memories also are associated with those that energetic release and emotions that are associated with working through connective tissue at certain parts of the body. I think the connective tissue for me is the more research that happens in the connective tissue as we go forward, I think we're going to find out that that is a massive missing piece in terms of somatic information and understanding, and acts as again, a reservoir of information, but a connectedness throughout our entire nervous system. And of course, who we are bioenergetically. I mean, I love connected to stuff. I could talk about that for weeks, if not years.
Yeah, yeah. I remember before I was aware of any of this stuff, before I was in this world, and actually even before, well, no, I might have just started my physical therapy journey. Um, I remember I was going and getting some Rolfing work done because I was having some massive issues going on, and it didn't help me at all.
Mm.
And you know why, Brian? Because I wasn't actually taking care of the emotions and the energetics that were
Yeah,
tied to it. I was a
yeah.
hot mess at that point in my life.
Mhm.
And so and so going through a bunch of stuff, and I realize now, looking back at that time, that was why it didn't work for me, because I wasn't actually healing the root cause of what was happening.
Yeah, and there might have also been, a part of your nervous system that was like, listen, I'm not ready to deal with
Mhm.
whatever's in here.
Yeah.
And so we gotta keep it, we have to really kind of just keep it repressed and keep it down.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot also. And that's why, being as a practitioner, being trauma sensitive, being trauma informed is so critically important. To your point again, working with your client, that when you're trauma sensitive and you understand kind of how these things work, you can hold that space for your clients, and when practitioners are not trauma sensitive or informed, they can't hold that space. Oftentimes, as a client of that, there's something about your nervous system that says, I am not ready to release this right now, because my nervous system won't be able to handle what's happening.
Yeah. Well, okay, so thinking about the toleration of the nervous system, I would love to know what is really the difference between I want this and my nervous system can tolerate this. And then also, how do you help somebody to build capacity for that thing that they really desire if their nervous system is not tolerating it?
Yeah, I love that. So there's the whole theory of the window of tolerance, which I'm sure you know about, right? So you've got the window of tolerance, and what that means is that above this, in the middle of the window of tolerance, you've got optimal nervous system function or optimal nervous system arousal, and above the window of tolerance, you have hyperarousal. Below the window of tolerance, you have hypoarousal, and so that any of us can flip into any of those areas depending what's going on in our lives and contextually. We're going to operate best if we are inside of our optimal arousal window. Now, the problem is for someone who has a low or a nervous system that can't tolerate a lot, the window of tolerance is very small. And so it doesn't take much to kick them into either hyper or hypoarousal. So the kind of the image we use is of widening the window of tolerance, widening the window of tolerance. And the way that you learn to widen the window of tolerance is you have to do this again, with somebody who knows how to do this, that can hold the space for it. If you're doing it yourself, you just have to go slow with it. The idea is you have to be able to just go outside of your window of tolerance a little bit and then get yourself back in. Be able to go outside a little bit and then get yourself back in. And that's how you slowly widen the window of tolerance, which is essentially what resilience is if you think about it. Resilience is the ability to not get knocked out of the window of tolerance. It's the ability to get back into the window of tolerance when you've been knocked out. Because life knocks us out of the window of life dysregulates us. That's what life does, right? When something happens upsetting in the world, or in your life, or in your environment, or whatever it is, we get kicked out of the window of tolerance. The question is, can we get back in or not? And so the way that we do that is with some somatic practices, and this is one you got to just kind of be careful with. Is we actually pay attention to those areas of chronic tension, right? So we actively pay attention to them. We kind of focus our awareness on them. Now, for some people, that alone could create like dysregulation. So that's why, you have to be careful when you do this. Um, Again, depending on how deep someone's trauma experience and history is. So, but when you focus on that area, what'll happen is it'll just expand a little bit. It'll grow a little bit because you're focusing on it. And so you expand a little bit, and then you go to something else, like an anchoring sensation or a grounding sensation. We have a process we teach people called cross mapping. It's one of the things that I developed through my years of PT and that sort of stuff, where it actually helps you to learn how to toggle your sensation experience in your body to different ways to actually be able to embrace what's happening that is a problem in the body, the area of tension. And then you go to another sensation. So you anchor, you resolve, you come back to the area of problem, you go back to the resolving sensation, you come back to the area of problem, you go back to the resolving sensation. And in that regard, you're training the nervous system to be able to come back into its anchor or its balance whenever you want to consciously. So that when you're out in the world and you get kicked out of the window of tolerance, you're like, wait, I know how to get myself back in. I practice this in my body, actually, rather than trying to think about how to do it. You've actually practiced that as a skill somatically.
You're creating safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and a safety someone can take with them anywhere, right? There's different levels of safety. Like sometimes we need to be with someone else to feel safe, and that's really, really important. And also, isn't it a great skill if you can just take safety wherever you go? Because you know you can generate it for yourself internally in your soma, actually in your system. Because when you're generating in your system, then that feeds up into the conscious mind that you're safe. And then you'll actually look for validation of what you're experiencing internally. Because that's actually how our nervous system works, right? Like every manifestation project starts on the inside. Any change project starts on the inside. And it's ultimately what's happening on the inside of us that determines what's happening on the outside of us. And so when we have really good internal locus of control, the outside world actually becomes less important of how it shows up.
Mm. What do you see really starts to change when people choose to be or expand that area of safety within themselves versus landing in a place of scarcity? What do you see really shifts?
One of the biggest shifts that happens is people become much less charged by what goes on
Yeah.
outside of them. So, think about this. You can go to family dinner at like a holiday dinner, right? Wherever you're going on Thanksgiving to see your family. Maybe you go see your family for once a year. We all go back for holidays, and we end up in a house where maybe we haven't been there for a whole year, but it's like the same thing happens year after year after year, and it's the same old uncle that says the same old thing that pisses you off the same old time. Every time you get charged by it, and you're like, I don't want to go there because I'm gonna get charged by the same thing, how they are, everything they do, how they chew, everything's just gonna make me so angry. Right? We get charged by all these things outside of us. And what happens when you make that change is you're not charged by it anymore. And they're chewing, and you're like, you're like, that's not even like, I don't even feel it. Like, that's so weird. Why am I not affected by that right now? And that's when you know that you've shifted a pattern internally because there's just no charge to it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not about the forcing. It is literally about the expansion that you've
Correct.
created through that inner work.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that leads to a follow-up question with that. So if we are working on the expansion, and I want everybody to kind of keep in mind the concept between traditional or most talked about manifestation work versus what we're talking about
Yeah.
today. Okay, that's important here in this question. I feel like when people are trying to step into a manifestation practice, they're literally forcing confidence. There is the whole and I'm sure that this works to a certain degree, but it makes my eye twitch because it just doesn't feel right when the biggest thing is, you know, just just fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it. I'm sorry, Brian. I don't think that that works very well. I when I hear that, my nervous system clenches up and I automatically am like, but I'm not. Dot, right? And so I would love to have you kind of follow up to all of this of, well, how do you work with all of this without forcing confidence, without faking it till you're making it, without that concept? Because there's just something gross that doesn't sit well with me for that.
Yeah, I'm just smiling as you're kind of talking about this because something we hear a lot from people. Um, so kind of two things. The first thing is the way I think about confidence is that confidence isn't something you have; it's something you allow to flow through you. Because if you look in the natural world, like everything in the natural world is 100% confident. Like trees aren't like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to grow any higher. I'm a little afraid of heights. I'm not sure I'm going to do it. Like squirrels aren't going to be like, I don't think I'm going to go after that bird feeder. No, no, they're in the bird feeder all the time. Like trees are just growing. So confidence is an energy that flows through everything at all.
If
So
I
it's
had
not
the confidence of my cat, I would be set. Sorry.
exactly.
Go
No,
on, Brian. Go
me too.
on.
We have this. Maybe we have the same cat. Our cat's the same thing. So the thing is like it flows through everything. So it's not like confidence is something you have or don't have. It's something you either allow or don't allow. And when your nervous system is open, your body's relaxed. When chronic tension drops and the spaciousness in the body opens, confidence just flows naturally through the system. So we don't work on like building the system up so much, like kind of becoming a tough person. We're like, you have to just open the system up and allow to tap into the flow of confidence. You have to understand what it feels like to be in that flow of life, flow of the animating force of all things is the most confident experience on the planet. So that's part one with confidence. Now, the other thing I love what you're talking about in terms of fake it till you make it is if in order to manifest whatever you want in the future, or whatever you want next, you have got to accept what you're experiencing now. You cannot create anything different without accepting fully what you're experiencing right now. Because here's the problem. When you fake it till you make it, what you do is you drag into your manifestation project everything you're trying to leave behind because you haven't accepted it. So when you're not accepting it, you're repressing it down into your system. And if you're repressing your system, it's still with you. And so it becomes a part of what you do next. And so you see people do this all the time, right? They create what they think is success and then something blows up. They create with something success and then something blows up. Or it blows up like right before or right when they're supposed to have the success. It just blows up because they have not fully accepted who they are, like where they're coming from, what they've created right now in the moment. I'm not saying you have to like it, but you have to accept it. Because once you accept it, then you can move forward. And to go even a step further, goes back to what we were talking about with like kind of scanning the body and looking at these areas of chronic tension and those types of things. You're going to you're going to feel in your body the things that you have not yet accepted. You will feel in your body what you have not yet accepted, what you're trying to push away, push down, get rid of. Like just think about those things. You're going to feel those in your body someplace. In those spots exactly is the solution to your problem. Because when you work in those spots specifically somatically and you work on expanding and learning to shift that specific tension point, that specific sensation, whatever it is, now you're creating alchemy, what we call alchemy, right? You're turning the dross into gold. You're actually, what's the phrase? There's this wonderful phrase. I just lost it, where the affliction itself becomes medicine. where the affliction itself becomes the medicine, right? So the medicine is right in that spot. But when you're trying to push it away and fake it till you make it, you're actually dragging that energy with you and you're repressing it further down and it's influencing you in shadow ways that you don't even realize.
Mm, yeah. Well, so thinking about all of this and manifestation culture in general,
Yeah.
is there a concept in your book, Manifestation for Dummies? Is there a concept in your book that's going to challenge this narrative?
Yeah, I think probably one of the big concepts you want to kind of think about are the natural laws are one thing. We talk a lot about the natural laws in the book,
Mm.
where when you come in actually into alignment with how nature works, right? Let go of how you were taught. Let go of how humans taught you to become successful. Because the way that most humans taught you to become successful is limited. Look how nature is successful. Because nature has been successful for billions of years, over and over and over again, and it has done it effortlessly. Nature doesn't strive. It works in natural cycles. It works in natural flow. It just keeps moving. It never becomes deterred. So I think just kind of if you can learn how nature works, since we have 2 chapters on the natural laws in there. And a lot of the work that again then is into the book around the somatic practices that we have filled the book with, because this book, what I'm really proud about it with Tansy is that of all the manifestation books that I've read, we wanted to write one that was not only practical and really straightforward and had a roadmap in it, but one that had more body knowledge, more body wisdom than any other manifestation book, because we feel like that's the thing that's really, really been left out. So all the somatic practices in the book are based in natural law. They're based in how helping you to align your physiology with how nature functions and how nature works. The other big thing that I think concept that's really important to understand in terms of manifestation is that manifestation can be often thought of as being a very selfish pursuit, like as something that I want. I want to manifest something. I want to get that thing. I want to get that thing. And then I'm going to think about it. I'm going to visualize it. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to journal about it. I'm going to say positive about it. And it's going to show up and everything's going to be better. Well, the fact is that manifestation, the way manifestation actually works is that you don't get what you want when you manifest. The truth of it is you actually don't get, if you're manifesting sustainably, let's say, if you're manifesting holistically, you don't get what you want. You actually get opportunities to become the kind of person who can have what you want. And that's actually the truth that happens with manifestation. You don't just get what you want, you become the kind of person who can have and hold what you want.
I think that that is one of the most brilliant things to say about this, Brian, because you're absolutely right. And I think that that's why people get so discouraged because they get into this cycle of working in different capacities to put out, I want this amount of money, I want this kind of
Right.
relationship, I want this kind of home, whatever it is, right? And when it doesn't show up perfectly, or it doesn't show up quickly, or the way that they want it, then all of a sudden manifestation doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. That's, I mean, it's 100% true. And the other critical thing that, as you're talking, kind of, I mean, there's so much stuff in this book I could just kind of keep blathering about. Is that when it comes to setting intentions for what you want to create, we have a whole roadmap in the book, and one of the steps in the roadmap is creating authentic intentions. And when you're setting a really good authentic intention, it's got to have like a couple, 3 parts to it, basically. The intention has to be real and important to you. And this is one place people make a mistake: is they actually set intentions based on what other people want or on what other people tell them they should want, and that's always doomed to failure. And so people are like, I can't manifest $1 million business. And it's like, do you really want $1 million business? Do you know what comes along with that? Do you know like the whole story? It's not just like $1 million in your bank account. $1 million business means that this is how much you're probably going to be working. This is who you need to be networking with. This is what, I mean, there's things that go along with having $1 million business. Is that really what you want? And they're like, maybe that's not what I want. But if they never really thought about what did they really want. Do you really want a fancy car, or do you want to be able to have like live in the middle of the woods? I mean, it's all right. Like everything is right, but you have to know what's right for you. And if it is that you want obscene wealth and that's really, really what you want, then that's great too. But the thing is, you really have to know what's right for you. So that's the first mistake people make is they try to actually intend to create something that not what they really want, but what other people want for them or someone else told them they should want. The next thing is that you have to be aligned with your purpose. Like all really true manifestation is aligned with what your purpose is here on the planet. And purpose isn't a doing state, it's a being state. It's a way of being in the world. And the third thing is your manifestation must serve the collective. There must be what we call the law of positive reciprocity must be a part of it. Otherwise, it's doomed to failure. It must create more life for everyone involved, not just you. And those are the three parts of an authentic intention. And that's the other thing that just as we're talking about it, I just want to kind of bring forth for people in terms of why sometimes manifestation projects don't work. Those are three failure points that show up for people pretty often.
Yeah. And so maybe what you just said is going to answer the next thing that I have to this. And if it does, please note that.
Yeah.
But if someone wants to consciously create a new life, what is the most important thing that that person stops doing? But then also, what's the most important thing that they start doing?
Yeah. So two things. So the thing that they need to stop doing is well, the first step in the roadmap process is to uncover uncover your limiting beliefs. You have to know why you are where you are right now. And that goes back to that acceptance step. Right. So know why you created what you have right now. Right. There's like and why ever you've manifested whatever you have in your life right now, it's because of a belief in something. Like you must believe something to create what you have right now. And that belief, if you want to create more than you have right now, then by definition, what you believe right now is limiting you. So you have to know what your limiting belief actually is. And then what you stop doing are things that feed your limiting belief. That's what you stop doing. You stop feeding the limiting belief. And then what you turn around and start doing are things to help you navigate through the resistance to creating what it is that you want. Because that's the other big barrier for people. It's the because when you navigate through the resistance, the thing that you want naturally happens. It's just we have resistance to it. And that resistance is subconscious. Because remember, your subconscious doesn't want you to change what you have right now, even if consciously you don't like it, which is a mind bender, but that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Brian, I could talk to you forever about this. This is so fascinating. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so I will absolutely, we're going to talk about where you can find Brian and get into his world in just a moment. I will have, just so we make note of this, I will have the link for this book down in the show notes over on the show notes page. Make sure that you jump there and click on that link and get your hands on this book because this is definitely a practice. When we talk about the somatics, it is a practice that I have never really seen highlighted. I think this is completely unique. And Brian, I'm all on board. I love this so much.
Cool,
Very,
Tansy.
very cool.
Thank you
Uh,
so much. It's great. It's been
yeah.
wonderful.
Now, before we get into all the logistics of where to find Brian, we're doing those rapid fire questions.
Yep,
Let's talk about you and what you do with manifestation. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay. All right. 3 questions. Number 1. What is the telltale sign in your own body that lets you know that you are going into protection mode?
For me personally, it feels like a twisting in the left side of my chest. I mean, it's
Oh,
like my best friend at this point. I'm like, I know exactly what it feels like, twisting in the left side of my chest.
that's incredibly specific. I love
Yep.
that.
I'm like,
All
there's
right.
the twisting. There it is.
All right. Number 2. What's something you believed about manifestation 10 years or so ago that you don't believe anymore?
The law of attraction, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, because the
we
law of
haven't talked about that. That's so
yeah.
interesting.
So over 10 years ago, I thought like I attracted things into my life that I was manifesting, right? And actually it doesn't work that way. Law of attraction is kind of it's a combination of other laws because the fact is, this is another mind-bending thing. The fact is, um, the opportunity to manifest what you want, if not the thing itself, is actually in your life right now. You just can't see it. It's in a blind spot or your resistance to it, or it's not in the form that you think it's supposed to be in. And so it's not a matter of attracting it, it's actually a matter of revealing it. So
Mm.
I don't consider it the law of attraction. I consider it the law of revealing. And we reveal it when our nervous system function changes enough so that we can see it, so that we come in harmony with it, and then we can actually, it reveals itself that way. But it's in your life right now. I have so many stories about that for us, that
Oh,
stuff then right in our lives for so long. We'd be like, oh my God, how do we not recognize that that was the opportunity to create what we wanted?
I love that. Oh, yeah, that is perfect. Yes. All right. And then rapid fire question number 3. What's your favorite manifestation practice that you do right now?
Oh, so mine, it's a somatic practice that I do every morning. So every morning I do a practice. It's kind of a giving and receiving practice. And so where I kind of get energy moving from my root up into my heart. And then I kind of move it out into the world. And I basically say, I call it GUS, God, Universe, Source. So GUS is kind of my acronym that I work with. So I'm like, Gus, just show me what I'm supposed to do in the world, like show me how I'm supposed to serve the world. And then I and accept back in. I say, and I am willing to receive any support to help me do that.
Mm.
And then I'll do it again. Gus, show me what I can do in the world, and I'm willing to receive any support to help me do that. That's my daily practice that I do.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Brian, where can people find you? Where can they get their hands onto your book? And what do you got on in your work right now?
Yeah, so they can always find us at the somaticcoachingacademy.com or just somaticcoachingacademy.com. You can actually find the book at mymanifestationguide.com. And if you go to that link and you get onto our website, you actually get a whole bunch of bonuses that go with the book. So there's a whole page there that tells you the bonuses that you get when you order it through the site. So you definitely want to go check those out for sure. That's really great stuff. Find us there. And then what are we doing? We're going to be doing a book tour afterwards. We're going to be at Kripalu in the fall doing an embodied manifestation workshop. That's actually kind of an extension of the book as well. So that's going to be a whole bunch of fun. Um, yeah, I mean that's the sort of stuff we're into. I mean, you can just check us out at the somaticcoachingacademy.com. We have all kinds of things happening over there. And you can always send us an email. Happy to answer any questions at all that you have.
Mm. You know how this works around here. All of those links will be down in the show notes so that you have easy access to get into Brian's world and, of course, get your hands onto that book. Brian, do you have any last words that you would like to lay on the hearts of the listeners for today?
I think I would just come back to cheerful indifference. The thing is that the world is a crazy, crazy place right now, it would seem. And it can feel so tempting to fight and to struggle and to um oh gosh, get anxious or filled with whatever that it is. And the idea is just to come back into presence with yourself,
Mm.
do the
Thank you.
practices to help you center, and share as much love and safety with other people as you can.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your heart and your wisdom. I appreciate you.
Tansy, thank you so much. It's a fantastic conversation, and I keep listening to your podcast. It's amazing.
Remember, manifestation is not just about what you want, but it's about what your body feels safe to open up to and to receive. Not just mindset, but capacity. Not just vision boards, but the nervous system patterns that decide what you actually follow through on. If you're listening to this and you've been feeling stuck in the gap between, I know what I want and why can't I sustain what I want, then this conversation is for you and you are in exactly the right place. And I really hope that this episode gave you that new lens and a kinder starting point of where you are and where you need to step into. And until next time, keep spreading that beautiful energy you were born to share.